Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karo More. 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 Toma bina ke dayalu Jagata sangsare. Toma bina ke dayalu Jagat sangsare. Toma bina ke dayalu Jagat sangsare. Toma bina ke dayalu. Patita pavana hetu tava avatara. Mosama patita prabhu na paibeara. Mosama patita prabhu ha prabhu nityananda Premananda Sukhe. Ha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhe. Kripa Balo Kanakara Ami Boro Dukhe. Kripa Balo Kanakara Ami Boro Dukhe. Daya Karo Sitapati Advaita Gosai. Daya Karo Sitapati Advaita Gosai. Tava kripa palepa Chaitanya nita. Tava kripa palepa Chaitanya nita. Haha Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha. Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunatha. Patayuga Shri Jivaha Prabhu Lokanatha. Shri Jivaha Prabhu Lokanatha. Daya Karo Shri Acharya Prabhu Srinivasa. Daya Karo Shri Acharya Prabhu Srinivasa. Ramachandra Sangamage Narottamada. Ramachandra Sangamage Narottamana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karamore Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Toma Bina Ke Dayalu Jagata Sansare Toma Bina Ke Dayalu Jagata Sansare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Goranita Jaya Goranita Goranita Jaya Goranita 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtota Saptashi Shrimati Goswami Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So, Hare Krishna, we're reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Madhya Lila, chapter 22, the process of devotional service. And we read from text 72 to 74. 74 is on the board. Sarabhuteshu yapashyet bhagavat pavam atmana bhutani bhagavat yatmani esha bhagavatottama. Translation. A person advanced in spirit in devotional service sees within everything the soul of souls, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Consequently, he always sees the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the cause of all causes and understands that all things are situated in him. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.45. Ishvare tat adhineshu balisheshu dvishatsucha premaitri kripopeksha yakaroti samatyamaha. Translation. An intermediate, second-class devotee shows love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is friendly to all devotees, and is very merciful to neophytes and ignorant people. The intermediate devotee neglects those who are envious of devotional service. Purport. This is a quotation from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.46. This statement was made by the great sage Narada while he was speaking to Vasudeva about devotional service. This subject was originally discussed between Nimi, the king of Videha, and the 9 Yogendras. Okay, so text 74. Please repeat after me. Archayameva haraye Ajayameva haraye Pujamya shraddhaye hate Pujamya shraddhaye hate Natat bhakteshu chanyeshu Natat bhakteshu chanyeshu Sabhakta prakrita smrita Sabhakta prakrita smrita Arjayameva haraye Pujam yashradhaye hate Natat bhakteshu chanyeshu Sabhakta prakrita smrita. Else? Vaishnavi? Okay, thank you. So word for word. Arjayam, in the temple worship. Eva, certainly. Haraye, for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pujam, worship. Yah, anyone who. Shraddhaya, with faith and love. Ihate, executes. Na, not. Tat bhakteshu, to the devotees of the Lord. Cha anyeshu, and to others. Sah, he. Bhakta, a devotee. Prakrita, materialistic. Smrita is considered. I learned this from Ramakanta Prabhu, that this H in the end, which has a dot underneath, is kind of just an aspired H. You don't pronounce it like smritaha or prakritaha, but it's just like prakrita, something like this. So that's why I'm trying. It sounds a little strange to me, but yeah, that's proper Sanskrit pronunciation. Okay, translation. A prakrita bhakta, or a materialistic devotee, does not purposefully study the Shastra and try to understand the actual standard of pure devotional service. Consequently, he does not show proper respect to advanced devotees. He may, however, follow the regulative principles learned from his spiritual master or from his family who worships the deity. He is to be considered on the material platform, although he is trying to advance in devotional service. Such a person is a Bhakta Praya, a neophyte devotee, or Bhakta Abhas, for he is a little enlightened by Vaishnava philosophy. Purport. This verse is also from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.47. So the previous three verses, they were all in a sequence from Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that one who has full love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead and who maintains a good friendship with the Lord's devotees is always callous to those who envy Krishna and Krishna's devotees. Such a person is to be considered an intermediate devotee. He becomes a first-class devotee when, in the course of advancing in devotional service, he feels an intimate relationship with all living entities, seeing them as part and parcel of the Supreme Person. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. A Prakrita Bhakta, or materialistic devotee, does not purposefully study the Shastra and try to understand the actual standard of pure devotional service. Consequently, he does not show proper respect to advanced devotees. He may, however, follow the regulative principles learned from his spiritual master or from his family who worships the deity. He is to be considered on the material platform, although he is trying to advance in devotional service. Such a person is a Bhakta Praya, a neophyte devotee, or Bhakta Bhas, for he is a little enlightened by Vaishnava philosophy. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you for coming to today's Chaitanya Charitamrita class. I was requested to speak yesterday afternoon, so I didn't prepare so much, but I tried to share something. I had a Bhagavad Gita class on Friday where was a similar topic discussed. So I draw a lot from that. So I hope nobody was there. That is a benefit. So I can speak again from that a little bit. But I request your blessings that it will be something of value to you and that it will help us in our spiritual life. So the topic of these 3 verses that we've just heard is the 3 different degrees of Vaishnavas that we know of, 3 categories, which are Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttamadhikari. And here in the last verse especially, it's been about a Prakrita Bhakta, or a materialistic devotee. And the main characteristic that is put underlined here is that this Prakrita Bhakta, he does not purposefully study the Shastra and try to understand the actual standard of pure devotional service. Consequently, it does not show proper respect to advanced devotees. It's interesting that Prabhupada speaks about this. It's not in the verse at all. Only the second part of the translation is really there in the verse. So Prabhupada gives an elaboration because he can see that for us, especially, I guess, Western devotees, this needs to be really emphasized. The other part, that the Prakrita Bhakta may follow the regulative principles and that he learned from his family, for example, who worships a deity. This is not so much relevant for us, since most of us, we have not learned to worship the deity in our family tradition. Maybe Kanai Prabhu has learned, but most of us haven't. So, but the main point which I draw out from this is it's about the faith, Shraddha. We all have a certain faith, and in Bhagavad Gita we're just in the 17th chapter, which is called the 3 divisions of faith, and it really speaks on this topic. And of course it's a very important topic for all of us, because spiritual life starts with faith, right? We have this sequence of Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, and onwards. But it all starts with Shraddha. So we really need to understand what is Shraddha, what does it mean, how can we apply it in our lives. And it's interesting that often in how we translate it, or what we hear, is that it's faith. And in outside world, people would consider that in comparison to knowledge. So either you have faith in something, you believe, or you know. That's often when I go out on the street, what people tell me, yeah, you believe in something, but I follow science, so I know. And that's the difference between me and you. And of course they feel very good with this. But any honest scientist, he will frankly admit that science is also a faith. It's a different kind of faith. Why is that so? Because so many points in science, they're not actually to be proven. And one important point that Prabhupada always points out, and has not changed, 50 years have passed since then, that life comes from matter. This is what scientists would say. Life develops from matter, but until now the scientists cannot produce life from matter. So, and this is how the whole biology is grounded, whole evolution theory, the concept of how modern man developed, it's all based on that. And still, it's a belief. And as devotees, we should be very bold also to point this out, like Srila Prabhupada did, and tell and make these people think, question their knowledge, their beliefs. What do you actually believe? And basically in our Shastras we hear of 2 kinds of Shraddhas. Have you heard different kind of Shraddhas? And Bhakti Goswami Maharaj, he speaks a lot about it. There's 2 kinds. Yes, exactly. So these 2 are there. And Lokika Shraddha means Nadya. What is Lokika Shraddha? What is Shastriya Shraddha? Lokika. Lokika basically is just everything else. Basically means mundane. We have the word loka there, no? Loka means like the worldly shraddha, or mundane, general shraddha. This is what people believe. And that's very much prominent in today's world. And this is just based on the 3 different modes. Right? The 17.3 in Bhagavad Gita, it's one of my favorite verses from a philosophical point of view, because it really gives a good basis to discuss and to show how Bhagavad Gita is so scientific, so deep. It is Sattva-narupa sarvasya shadho mayo. Sattva-narupa sarvasya shadho mayo yam purusha. Shadho mayo yam purusha yoyacharasa evasa. That every man's faith, every man is made up of his faith, basically. Every one of us. We're made up of our faith. That's how we lead our lives, right? What we have as a faith, as a worldview, this is what we will project outside, and this is how we conduct our lives. But actually, even in philosophy, there's this philosophy of solipsism, right? Even, you know, solipsism? Which these people, they say, actually, I don't know if the world outside even exists, because you cannot prove it scientifically. It's circular reasoning. And it's a whole kind of philosophy behind that. We're not going into that. But basically, you cannot even be sure that the world outside exists. Maybe it's just a simulation of your mind. And then, you know, all this is just, you know, this is what these people actually believe. Like very educated, very qualified people, materially speaking, they think like that. So, point is, we all have a certain faith that pushes on how we live. And of course, especially in India, we can see that in the religious sphere, this leads to kind of bizarre kind of ways of how people live spirituality, and very mentally concocted faiths. They just put together things, and then they worship this deity according like this, and there's this ghost in the tree. Prabhupada gives this example, you know, there's this ghost in the tree, and then everybody's afraid. But then when the sun comes, then it's just a normal tree, and people recognize, no, it was just our mental concoction. And so many examples like this. And Swami Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj, he gives this example. It's that what is actually truth? And we can see in the history, if we look back, often what was thought to be true later on turned out not to be. So he makes his point that if you tell a lie long enough to somebody, to people, then they will consider the truth at some point. If this so-called truth is propounded further, then it turns into a culture. And eventually this culture carries on into a tradition and is passed on, and so new souls, they get born into this tradition, and this is just how things are. That's how they're gonna practice spirituality, for example, also. That's what we could see, every one of us, I think, who grew up in Christian countries also. But even also devotee kids, you know. For you also, you just get born into this, so that's how you do it. It can lead to this certain kind of complacency. It's just comfortable, you just do what you do, but you don't really understand what it is about, you don't really go deeper into the essence of the tradition. So that's why there's a real need for questioning this Lokika Shraddha, this conventional Shraddha, these conventional things that we have grown up, the socialization that we have grown up with. And then we come to Bhakti Yoga, we read these books, all the Shastras, and we need to really question the Shastras. Is it actually true what's in the Shastras? How do I understand this? How can I apply it in my life? Do I see the results that are promised in the books, in the Shastras? And once this conclusion comes, yes, actually I can see this is working, this is happening in my life, then that's when Shastriya Shraddha develops. Right? So that's kind of the turning point from Lokika to Shastriya Shraddha. And Shastriya Shraddha produces Smriti. From Smriti comes the remembrance that you can actually apply these teachings in your life more and more. Whereas Lokika Shraddha is also called Komala Shraddha, or pliable, very soft, very malleable Shraddha, which is heavily influenced by outside influences. So, on Sunday, today, somebody comes in and he says, actually, science says there is no God. So you're all just practicing something wrong. And then you're like, oh my God, yeah, maybe he's right. I should really change my ways. This is Lokika Shraddha, if you're very easily influenced by outside association. So this is a good way of checking our own faith. If we speak with other people, are we influenced easily by that? Also, Bhakti Goswami Maharaj always points this out, that Lokika Shraddha, like if we lack Shastriya Shraddha, this faith in scripture, then we tend to patch up the faith with some miracles, some far out stories. And I'm sure all devotees can attest to this, and especially also in Eastern countries. You hear a lot of this, like in Russia, there's so many miracles happening, and not saying that it's not happening, there are miracles, of course. But just, we shouldn't rely on that as our main inspiration for our spiritual life. But we should actually really take shelter of the Shastra and see the world through Shastra. And then we come to this point of what does Shraddha actually mean. You heard, so faith is the common meaning that we understand, but do you know other kind of translations of this word? Because it's interesting to understand it better. Also Bhakti Goswami Maharaj speaks about this. So if you look up on the internet, on the dictionary, you will find many things actually. But one main point is that Shraddha means respect also. Right? We have the Shraddha ceremonies. When somebody leaves the body, we perform Shraddha ceremonies as a ceremony of respect also. So Bhakti Goswami Maharaj speaks about the culture of respect that Vedic culture implies. And it's a very essential point. Also, Shraddha means Shraddha. Dha means to give, and Shrad is a flexion of Hrit, of the heart. So to give the heart, to put one's heart into something, that's Shraddha, that's faith. You can see what kind of Shraddha you have when you see where do you put your heart. If there's a difficult situation, you're driving in the Himalayas and then the driver, he goes off the road, he goes downhill. So then, what do? Do you chant Hare Krishna, or do you hold on to your seatbelt and hope this will save you? In this kind of difficult situations, you really get tested. And especially the more extreme, the more you can see it. But from understanding Shastra better, developing this Shastriya Shraddha, it produces respect. And that's what Prabhupada says here in the verse, in his translation, which is already kind of a purport, that consequently a Prakrita Bhakta does not show proper respect to advanced devotees. If he lacks this Shastriya Shraddha, the faith in scripture, he will not respect devotees, but especially the advanced devotees. And this is a big, big problem in our spiritual life. And of course we also know that in Shikshashtakam it is said, Amanina Manadena. We have to really go deep into chanting, to always chant the holy name. We have to respect everyone and don't expect any respect for ourselves. But for us, as having been growing up in this Western environment, is very difficult. I can see myself, often I in my mind I criticize devotees. I kind of question devotees. Why, they're senior devotees, they should not do this or that, or I don't understand why they do things like that. But we should always understand that how do we judge, how do we understand things? It's really based on our false ego, on our faith that we have acquired. So rather than going along on that way, on the manorata, on the cart of the mind, we should, again, stick to the Shastra. Because what is happening if we follow our mind, this will lead to degradation. It's a circular reasoning. So we have weak faith, That's why we see faults in others. That's why our faith gets weaker. That's why we make offenses. That's why our faith gets weaker. And eventually, yeah, before we know it, we're out of here. So how to actually get this Shraddha? That's the main question. How can we get this very strong Shastriya Shraddha? And of course, like Prabhupada points out, we have to study the Shastra purposefully and try to understand the actual standard of pure devotional service. But Shishi Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi ki jai. Sisi Gornitai ki jai. But just a little before, in the CC, a little before the chapter that we are in the 19th chapter, it is also explained that, so Bhakti is there in everybody of us. This love for Krishna is dormant, but we can see it's not fully blossoming. We don't have this this spontaneous attraction to Krishna, most of us. So how to awaken it? And it is said that Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beach, that by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, this Bhakti Lata Beach, the seed of pure devotional service, is given to the conditioned soul. So it doesn't mean that Bhakti is given, Bhakti is already there, but what is the beach? You know this, we spoke about this before. What is this Bhakti Lata beach? So Bhakti is already there, Bhakti Lata is already there, but then still the seed of Bhakti is given. How is, what seems like contradiction, no? Okay, so Bhakti is already in our heart, but then this verse says that Guru and Krishna, by the mercy of Krishna, you meet the Guru who gives you Bhakti. So Bhakti is already there, but Guru gives you Bhakti. What does it mean? Is it there or is it not? There's a big discussion amongst Vaishnavas. Is Bhakti inherent or inherited? So we should know what is our stand on this also. So Prabhupada explains in the purport that the Bhakti Lata beach, what it means, it's the, I haven't written it down exactly, but it's the methods, the rules and regulations, the knowledge of how to practice devotional service. That's the beach, that's the seed that the spiritual master gives us to awaken this bhakti further, that is already there. So this is a very crucial point, I think, for us to understand. That, and Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he also says that it's actually the faith. Like literally, the Guru instills the faith in the disciple. So how to get pure faith? It's in this association with the pure devotee, with the spiritual master, who gives us this faith. And Prabhupada writes in one purport in Chaitanya Madhya Lila 19:152. Thus the spiritual master trains his disciple to render devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Guru Kripa. It is Krishna Prasad, Krishna's mercy, that he sends a bona fide spiritual master to the deserving disciple. By the mercy of Krishna, one meets the bona fide spiritual master, and by the mercy of the spiritual master, the disciple is fully trained in the devotional service of the Lord. After receiving the spiritual master's mercy, one must repeat his instructions, and this is called Shravana Kirtana, hearing and chanting. One who has not properly heard from the spiritual master, or who does not follow the regulative principles, is not fit for chanting Kirtan. One has to water the Bhakti Lata beach by receiving instructions from the spiritual master. So first this point, what is this Krishna Prasad? It's the mercy that somebody gets a spiritual master. And then, what is the mercy of the spiritual master, Guru Kripa? It's that he trains the disciple. And this is, I also read this in Devaki Mataji's book. What's it called? About relationships, sheltering relationships. It's all about different relationships we have, and also with Guru and Shiksha Guru. And she says what does mercy really mean? When do we know that we achieve mercy, that we get mercy? No, it's also a good question. When do we know that there is mercy in our lives? And one point she makes is that if a senior devotee, if advanced Vaishnava, he's interested in our spiritual lives. He tries to help us develop devotional attachment to Krishna. That's real mercy. If you have some person in your life, some persons, who are actually concerned for the welfare of the spiritual life, that's the mercy. And this is very rare. We can ask ourselves, how many friends do we have? How many senior devotees, shiksha gurus that really are like, that we have a good contact and that actually, help us to develop in this way? I think it's quite lacking in ISKCON, and we need to develop more this kind of relationships. So, but back to this point that Krishna sends the guru to the qualified disciple. That's also an interesting thing. First you have to become qualified. And then one has to hear and speak about the instructions that one receives from the spiritual master. Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he says, if you have not gotten instruction, a personal instruction from your spiritual master, then you are cheated. Your spiritual master cheated you. So, but then of course, the spiritual master only cheats us if we want to be cheated. If we have the strong eagerness to get instructions, then he will also give us these instructions. So this is one of our prayers that should be, I think, for myself at least it is, that I really want to have an instruction, some instructions from a spiritual master that I can follow in my life. And of course, we have general instructions that are there. 4 recs, chant Hare Krishna, read the Shastra, and this and that. But like personal instructions. So, this Shastriya Shraddha will lead to respect, and this respect will qualify us to actually get the association of a pure devotee. And then he can impart us the Bhakti Lata Beach, the pure faith, from which then we can really develop our spiritual life. And in this purport, Srila Prabhupada, in the previous verses also, Prabhupada spoke about how a first-class devotee, he sees Krishna everywhere, in all living entities. And how does he see that? It's also because he has this respect. What does respect mean? Satyananda Maharaj points this out. Respect, respectare. You look again. Everything that happens in our lives, Krishna is there. No, nothing is outside of Krishna's range. He's there in everything. He's a super soul in every atom, in everyone's heart. So everything that happens, happens for a reason. Now if you have respect, then you look again. Then you try to understand, why did this person tell this to me? You try to understand, why did this situation happen to me? You become introspective. From respect, you come to introspect. And then you will see Krishna in everything. And this pure devotee, he has internalized this process. It's not like something he has to do externally, introspect. But it's like it's something that's coming natural for him. And that's where we have to go also. We have to become this kind of devotees who can see Krishna in everything, how everything is in an interaction with Krishna. And how do we get there? Again, it's through Guru, through the spiritual master. And I had this one experience that I want to share with you, where I was now in Mayapur for 2.5 weeks, and then in Vrindavan, and my main purpose of going there was not pilgrimage, but more to serve my spiritual master. And on one instance, we had this morning program, so we were a little bit outside. It's a Rasamrita Kunj for those who know. It's a little bit outside of the temple campus. So we would go for Mangal Arti, but then we would go back and have our own little program there, like Guru Puja and the class. And so this one devotee always gave class. And this one devotee gave class, and after class I discussed a little bit with him, and somehow we came to this point of cleanliness. And he said there was something that was not clean, and it was my responsibility to make it clean. So then I said, yeah, I didn't have time. I was only doing it like superficially. I had to do it quick. And he was like, but why? You know, this is devotional service. If you really understand what is devotional service, then you won't just do it quick, and just, you know, get over with. Because that's the activities we do, that's exactly the important thing, to put your mind and your full time and energy, your shraddha, your heart, into the action, no? So why? And I was like, yeah, you're right, yeah, it's okay, but, you know, we need to be practical, like that. So I was not really respecting him, or like, you know, really understanding it. Then a few hours later, I was cleaning Guru Maharaj's balcony, so there's one balcony there. And the devotees, they didn't really instruct me how to do it, you know, they just said, clean. Just do it like that. And I did it. I just did the simple things like the floor and a little bit. And then Guru Maharaj came and he was like, come. And he took my hand and quite forcefully, he put it on the veranda, what do you call this, railing or something. Pushed it around, like on it, and he showed to me and he said, look. And it was really dirty. Because I had cleaned, because nobody told me. I thought, okay, just do the floor, you know, that's it. And he looked at me, and it's so dirty, and then he showed me like other things, many things. And it's so dirty. What are you doing? You're not chanting japa properly. And he was totally right, you know, totally right. I was really, so I came to Mayapur, and it was like hot and everything, and my japa was like just like a kind of snooze and some Hare Krishnas in between. And then he said, don't be superficial. You're Swiss, you're not supposed to be superficial. And I was like, yes, Guru Maharaj. And then he went, and of course I cleaned. But it struck me, first of all, many things. And that's why it's interesting, you know, if you have this respect for somebody, for Guru, but you can have it for every devotee, that's what we should aim for. Then you will really, this kind of instructions or the interactions, they will leave some imprint. They will do something to your heart. They will change the way you perceive things. They will change, they will act on your shraddha. But when he said it, don't be superficial, it really hit home, because this is one of my biggest fears in my life in general, but also in Krishna consciousness, to just, you know, do things, but be on the surface, not going deep, not understanding, not becoming actually Krishna conscious, but just like, yeah, staying a Prakrita Bhakta all the time. So this point was there. But then also, later on I thought, wow, this is what this other devotee just told me in the morning, you know, clean properly, you know, do it like full on. So, you know, Guru Maharaj just confirmed what this devotee had already said. So for me it was like, wow, you know, Super Soul is like, this is how Super Soul works. He works through all different devotees, through everybody. We just have to listen and be conscious, aware of it. Then we can learn, like, we can learn and grow from all the interactions we have in our spiritual life. Then we can see Krishna everywhere. And so Guru really teaches you that, no, to learn to respect and have faith in the devotees, in Shastra, and in spiritual life especially. And in this way then you can continue on to grow in your spiritual life. So yeah, this is really what I wanted to speak about, that we have to really understand what does Shraddha mean, because it's the main ingredient of our spiritual life that will stay with us all the time and is really determining our faith, our spiritual life, how it will progress. And that Shraddha, one basic main meaning is respect. We have to learn to respect all the devotees, and also respect to see again at situations, understand them more deeply. And then how to get this faith, we have to associate with sadhus, with those who are strongly attached to Krishna, and they will impart it to us. And then we can come into this upward spiral. There's this downward spiral, which is kind of the normal way that in the material world things work. You know, everything is degrading. So you judge by your mind. You have this Lokika Shraddha. You judge by your mind a certain devotee, for example. This will weaken your faith in devotional service. How can he act like this? He's been practicing so long. Then in turn you commit offenses. This will weaken your faith, and eventually you will stop practicing. and you will not go further in your bhakti process. Okay, it's 8:30. I think we can stop here. Yeah, if you have any questions or comments, we can also discuss later. Okay. Who's there?
How we can
как мы можем получить личное духовное наставление от духовного учителя, если мы здесь, а духовный учитель далеко от нас?
Да.
Okay. How we can receive spiritual instructions from spiritual master if we are far from him and have no opportunity to approach to him personally.
Yes, important question, which is very relevant. Personal instruction. Yes, it's an important question because it's the reality most of us face. And of course we can hear of very advanced devotees who get this kind of instructions in their dreams, for example, who get them through other devotees. And that's again, this respect, this highly being conscious, highly being tuned into life and how Krishna acts in your life. But this is for highly advanced devotees. One devotee was speaking about Aindra Prabhu. There was his disappearance day when I was in Mayapur, and there was one of his very close associates there, and he spoke a little bit. It was very inspiring, and he said how Prabhupada, I think it's also described in his book, how Prabhupada personally came in his dream to give him his spiritual form, tell him about who he is in spiritual world. It's far out, no? Because that's what Guru will do. That's the duty of Guru, to give us our Swarup, to tell us who we are in the spiritual world. Okay, next level, but just so we understand. So he got the personal instruction from Srila Prabhupada in his dream, and he confirmed it with other devotees, with some Babajis in Radhakund. He told this whole story, how he went to the Radhakund Babaji and this told him the same name that Prabhupada told him in the dream, totally unrelated, like that. So this is one way of getting personal instructions. But for us, in my understanding, which is very limited, I think it's mainly through the disciples of Guru Maharaj, his close disciples, that we maybe have more interaction with, our Shiksha Gurus. If they are really in line with and tuned in to our spiritual master, then they will be able to pass on the instructions that he will give us also, right? And this is how parampara works in a certain sense, that and in one way, this is also a big topic, that how Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru, they're very, very similar in status in terms of their influence in our life. We should also worship them a lot, and really have this respect and try to serve them, of course, and receive instructions in this way also. And in this way, they are our connection to our spiritual master. That's what I would say now. Okay, but last one, yeah?
Thank you very much. I want to add that mercy